Jesus, we don't like to take her across the road.
Yeah, I could tell.
Uh, Today's lesson is like the birth of Moses. It comes from Exodus 2, 1 through 10. And we can all relate to this, but it's funny how you read things and you learn as you go. You can read something over and over and still learn something each and every time you go through it. So I'm going to start us off reading the verses, and then we'll elaborate some. Now a man of the tribe of Levi married a Levite woman, and she became pregnant and gave birth to a son. When she saw that he was a fine child, she hid him for 3 months. But when she could hide him no longer, she got a papyrus basket for him and coated it with tar and pitch. Then she placed the child in it and put it among the reeds along the bank of the Nile. His sister stood at a distance to see what would happen to him. Then Pharaoh's daughter went down to the Nile to bathe, and her attendants were walking along the riverbank. She saw the basket among the reeds and sent her female slave to get it. She opened it and saw the baby. He was crying, and she felt sorry for him. "This is one of the Hebrew babies," she said. Then his sister asked Pharaoh's daughter, "Shall I go and get one of the Hebrew women to nurse the baby for you?" "Yes, go," she answered. So the girl went and got the baby's mother, Pharaoh's daughter, and said to her, "Take this baby and nurse him for me, and I will pay you." So the woman took the baby and nursed him. When the baby grew older, she took him to the Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son. She named him Moses, saying, "I drew him out of the water." So, with these verses that I just read, there's a lot going on there. Because if you start reading that, and me, I got to soak it up like a sponge. So little by little, it's like there's a lot going on, man. Because you got a little baby, then you got a sister and an older brother, then a Pharaoh's daughter, and a lot of this stuff don't blend, sort of like oil and water. But anyways, it's actually amazing how Moses made it, because normally they get tossed or put in a river for drowning, especially if you're under the Pharaoh's guidance. And anyways, it's amazing how he survived. And it says this, the correct procedure was like has a fine child. When it first comes out, they said this is a fine child. So that sort of represents that he's got a title from here on out. So, and I thought that was pretty interesting, just to get that title as soon as most babies are fine when they come out. You know what I'm saying? Some have issues, but what I'm saying is I've never seen a baby that didn't look beautiful. You know what I'm saying? Starting a new life and stuff. But this one was like titled as soon as it come out. And I got to reading that, and I said, there's a reason behind this. Well, it didn't take me long to figure out, they started elaborating about a fine child. Verses 1. Now a man of the tribe of Levi married a Levite woman. All right. It just tells you about the marriage, a little bit about it. And then and it goes sort of like steps right into verse 2. It says, "And she became pregnant and gave birth to a son. When she saw that he was a fine child, she hid him for 3 months." So, with that being said, why wasn't there any others hid, or were there any others hid? That sort of brings up a question. Were there others hid that we don't know about, or they didn't survive or something and never talked about? So that brought up a question in my mind. So, but it don't elaborate on that. It just elaborates on this one child. And as you read through this, you'll see it breaks it down. It says the survival of the woman's son would be in doubt. considering the cruel decree from the Pharaohs or Pharaoh. The text before us does not speak to the birth order of this child. So, you know, if the Pharaoh had found out about it, it would have been over and done. But it also says in here that what we know is Moses. He has a older brother, Aaron, and an older sister. And at the time, they didn't give the name, but as I read through, I found out that her name was Miriam. So, and this will come back later to, we'll talk on it, on why these two were mentioned. It says, the text speaks as the child being described as a fine child, which could be laid out as God's good creation for his future intentions. So, with that being said, Jesus has a plan for this child. And with that being said, you know, or you assume, but if it's through God's hands, you know, you don't assume nothing if it's through God's hands, that this child's got something laid out for it. And it also says the child could fulfill God's plan. So God may have plans for this child. It says it sort of breaks it down in three categories. The phrase fine child could come from its physical appearance or its physical appeal. You know, healthy, vibrant looking child and beauty. But with this being said, beauty does not play a measure for God's call on this person. So, you know, we all have heard Beauty and the Beast. So this is like, if this child was even, if you couldn't even look at this child, you had to turn your head every time you seen it or something. God had a plan for this child, had a measurement plan for him. The parents keep the child hid for 3 months. And they say that wasn't an easy task. So I can't imagine hiding a kid for 3 months with all the tension that's in the, you know, it's sort of like Susan, your kid's trying to hide something from you. If they hide it for you for 3 months, they've done a good job. You taught them well, or Dean taught them well, or something. But anyways, you know what I'm trying to say. We know our kids, and sometimes it's like, oh, they acting a little different or something. You know what I'm saying? So it's kind of hard. Could you imagine hiding a baby that cries? And you know what I'm saying? That blows my mind there. But anyways, it says the parents kept the kid hid for 3 months. That wasn't an easy task. The parents knew this was not any ordinary child, and they were not afraid of the king's or edict. So with that being said, they know they was taking a chance. They said, this is a special kid. We're going to take a chance on, you know, his survival. So that's what they did. They went out there on a limb and took a chance. So verses 3. But when she could hide him no longer, she got a papyrus basket for him and coated it with tar and pitch. Then she placed the child in and put it among the reeds along the bank of the Nile. So I know what tar is, but I've never heard tell of pitch. Now I have read about it. But Ronnie, do y'all sell any pitch over there at y'all's? I don't even know what it is, but it's a sealant. Like, to me, like Thompson water seal or something. It's a sealant to keep the water out. I thought tar was part of that, keeping the water out. But anyways, it's amazing how they use all the natural ingredients to put this baby in a basket that they handmade, put tar in it, seal everything together, and then they seal over it with pitch. And I thought that was amazing how, you know, I can go out here and go to the store and get anything and everything I want pretty much, and then argue because I ain't got nothing to work with. I don't have nothing to work with. You know what I'm saying? But I had my chance to get everything, thought I had everything, and still complain because I don't have nothing to work with. But anyways, and it's amazing how they get this from natural resources. It says the parents keep each, I'm sorry, I'm reading the wrong one. It says after 3 months, the baby could no longer stay hidden. The time had come for his parents to deal with the unjust realities of the Pharaoh's command. Ironically, the child's mother did not let the letter of the law of the Pharaoh, did she cast her son into the river. So, however, she did so in a manner that allowed the child's survival, thus going against the spiritual or spirit of the Pharaoh's law. So we see there that, most kids or male kids were tossed into the river for their death. And she had to prepare so this one had a better chance for survival. So she went out, and done this basket and stuff. It says the underlying Hebrew word translate as a basket appears in one other Old Testament narrative to refer to the Ark of Noah. And the verse before us, the basket was built to hold a small child. It was like a small ark. In both instances, God provided for the people through a kind ark. Just as an ark saved Noah and his family from the waters of flood, this ark would save a child from the waters of the river. So it was sort of built like the ark, the smaller version, and performed procedures like the ark. The child's mother built the basket using common materials found in the region of the Nile. Bulrushes of the papyrus would have been obtained from the marshy wetlands of the river. In order to seal the basket, the child's mother coated the basket with tar, a sticky substance used in a construction. And the substance served to bind the papyrus reeds together to form the vessel. Pitch was added as a waterproofing agent, fit to keep the interior of the waterborne vessel and their passengers dry. So we see there that they used natural stuff they had around the Nile to perform or make this basket, seal this basket to give it a chance of survival. It says, amid the slow-moving marshy waters of the riverbank, she put the papyrus bags among the reeds. By placing the basket here, the reeds provided a protection and concealed the basket. She would have to trust that God would protect her son. So there's a lot going on there, just to be able to hide a kid for 3 months, then come up with a plan to hopefully give this baby a survival, some way to make it survive or keep it to, out there, and hopefully something like this would happen so it could survive. His sister stood at a distance to see what happened to him. So with this being said, it's amazing when it says his sister. I sort of had like, okay, his sister. So that means he's got an older sister, You got a range difference there, and I don't know how big the range was, but there's a range difference of she was able to sort of observe what was going to happen to the basket, if somebody was going to pick it up or whatever, or something fatal was going to happen. It says, we learned that the child had a sister, Miriam. At this point in the narrative, special details about her life are unknown. In this instance, she at a distance of the basket to keep an eye on her brother and take note of the eventual outcome, survival or death. So she was like surveying what was going to happen. Okay. So everything's working out so far. We got the baby in the basket and in the reeds. She's sort of overseeing what's going on and what's going to happen. Now, we don't know good things are going to happen or bad things are going to happen. It says, verse 5. The Pharaoh's daughter went down to the Nile to bathe, and her attendants were walking along the riverbank. She saw the basket among the reeds and sent her female slave to get it. All right. Well, this being said, all right. Most kings, if they got daughters, you would think they wouldn't just be walking out to the river to bathe. You would think they would have a bathhouse or some place to go, this. In other words, everybody bathes in the Nile. You could be at this level, or up here. But it was sort of amazing when they said that she was going down there to bathe, and they couldn't figure out why she wasn't, didn't have a bathhouse, or at least have a place secluded that she could go to and bathe. The Pharaoh would have had many partners, wives, and children. The relative power of any one child in the Pharaoh's kingdom would have depended on the importance of that child, mother to the Pharaoh. So, with that being said, also, there could be many wives, and if he had a daughter with multiple wives, some may be favored more than others. In other words, I'm picking this one out here. She's going to do this and this. Others don't really care. I mean, I don't care what they do. It's just they're not going to do this. This is what I'm going to appoint her to do. So, in other words, I guess he had favorites. The daughter of the Pharaoh may or not have been a powerful woman in her father's kingdom. In any case, she was far more powerful than Moses' family, for the better or worse. So we do know that she was more powerful than the Hebrew family, which is where Moses was born, or birth mother. Surely a royal princess would have more appropriate locations to bathe, as I mentioned earlier, including a royal bathhouse. Her motivations for bathing at the Nile are not obvious. Perhaps she was following the example of her father. Most importantly, she noticed that the basket floating among the reeds of the papyrus. Whether the child's mother and sister intended for him to be found by Egyptian royalty is unknown. The Pharaoh's daughter was faced with a problem: abide by her father's commands regarding the treatment of Hebrew sons or not. So she went out on a limb here to pick this basket, or have her female slave, pick this basket up, because she could have been ousted or maybe killed herself from the family. Verses 6. She opened it and saw the baby. It was crying, and she felt sorry for him. This is one of the Hebrew babies, she said. Now, in this verse here, when it says she opened it, I assumed that the Pharaoh's daughter had opened it. But if you read in here, it will say, we're not sure if the Pharaoh's daughter or the female slave or one of the attendants had opened it. But instantly, whoever opened it figured out that it was one of the Hebrew babies. So they knew there was another X. They knew that they were in trouble if they tried to save this baby. Given that the previous verse refers to the Pharaoh's daughter, her attendants, and her female slave is antecedent of one of the opened the basket. Whoever opened the basket, even that the Pharaoh's daughter was not the specific individual who opened the basket, she would have been aware of the results in her actions. Like any other, the 3 months old baby was crying. Perhaps he was startled, fearful, or hungry. I would probably say that the baby was probably hungry, but I don't. That's just my opinion. But anyways, instantly they knew that it was a Hebrew baby. So it's not known who actually, it says right here, it's not known who actually opened it. It was her attendant or her female slave. The Pharaoh's daughter had an instant compassion for the kid, even if it was a Hebrew. She ends up helping the child. So, she's going out here on a limb, picking up the baby, attending the baby, carrying it back. And it says instantly she has a compassion for the baby. And even though it wasn't of her, I guess, descendants. So we know now that we're were at the stage of trying to hide the baby again, but take it home and hopefully get somebody to look after it. Verses 7. Then his sister asked Pharaoh's daughter, shall I go and get one of the Hebrew women to nurse the baby for you? So here's another red flag. So instantly his sister, which is not an Egyptian, also goes and asks the lady, the Pharaoh's daughter, can I get a nurse to tend this baby for you? You know, it's sort of odd. It says in here it's sort of odd or strange. It says, from her outpost, the child's sister appeared. Her appearance presented sort of like an issue. And it says, why would the Pharaoh's daughter listen to this strange girl? And like I said, like we read earlier, Pharaoh's daughter has more authority than the sister. So, but it's funny how the sister approaches her and asks her. Normally, the Pharaoh's daughter would say, hey, you go do this for me. So further, they choose a nurse from the Hebrew woman when the Egyptian nurses were available. So that's another scenario. You had Egyptian nurses available, but she chooses a Hebrew lady. In ancient culture, a mother did not always have the ability to nurse and care for her child. In this case, a nurse was chosen to help both the child and the mother. Powerful women might acquire a nurse to avoid the inconvenience of motherhood. However, precise motives of the Pharaoh's daughter desiring a nurse is unknown. In any case, if she was not recently pregnant, she could not have nursed the child. This interaction linked the child's sister and mother with the Hebrew midwives, women who save vulnerable babies. And so further, this text speaks to the reliance of the child's family and that made efforts to survive under hostile and unjust conditions. By asking whether the Hebrew may nurse the baby, the Pharaoh's daughter was placed in a difficult position. Would she resist the Pharaoh's tyranny and take pity on the child and the Hebrew woman who stood before her? Or instead, would she follow the humiliating practices of her powerful father? So she's still in trouble because she could get caught at any time. Verses 8. Yes, go, she answered. So the girl went and got the baby's mother. So now we're getting ready to present, the mother the baby back to its mother. And the irony of the baby's mother sending him away and then having the chance to nurse him would have escaped the Texas audience. The vulnerable slave woman outwitted the imperial death-bent system that desired the death of her son. Even more ironic was that she was achieved through the daughter of the very man who instituted the death decree. Audiences of all eras can appreciate the cleverness of the Hebrew women in this narrative. So we have clever ladies planning this out, or hopefully their plan follows through, and so far it has. So they outwitting the Pharaoh himself. Verse 9. Pharaoh's daughter said to her, take this baby and nurse him for me. I will pay you. So the woman took the baby and nursed him. So, not only does she get her baby back, she's going to get paid also. So she, it's just, everything's falling in place now. She's going to get paid also. The attention of Pharaoh's daughter turned to the mother of this baby. Whether the Pharaoh's daughter suspected the true identity of this woman is unknown. By telling the baby's mother to take him could indicate the Pharaoh's daughter was filled with compassion and desire that the baby boy return to his people. Because Moses' mother trusted God, she was rewarded. Not only would she raise her own child, but she would be given pay out of the royal coffers to take care for him. She would provide for her family, all while she preserved her son's life. So I know all this is sort of like taking place and everything's working, but to me, the best thing in this scripture here, it says, was her mother's trust in God. So if you don't get nothing else out of this, it was amazing how they put their trust in God. Man, I ain't never done this. Anyways, verses 10, it says, when a child grew older, she took him to the Pharaoh's daughter and it became her son. So the Pharaoh's daughter adopted the son. Now, they didn't say what age the kid was, but anyways, when it got old enough, the Pharaoh's daughter adopted this kid. Verses 10b. She named him Moses, saying, I drew him out of the water. And this text here is more or less a name is given to the child by the Pharaoh's daughter, and it is Moses. Moses was rescued from certain death, and with God's guidance, he will rescue his people from future dangers. So it was technically has something to do. Moses is due to rescuing. He was rescued, and God's got plans for him to rescue people. So hopefully y'all got something out of this, and I hope y'all have a good week.